Hey, y'all. This is Dr. Carr, the Culture Docent, here to help you navigate and curate the experiences you want to have. It is 2026, and by the grace of God, we made it. Thank you for joining us back in the new year. If you had a chance to peek my holiday message or see my posts on socials, I mentioned that the Culture Docent podcast has so much to share with all of you from new guests across so many different industries, including health, art, music, tech, everybody. So we'll also be trying out some new formats because I believe in balance, but I also want to ensure I'm delivering on the content you actually want to hear about. So I'm going to keep you updated, of course, as much as we go through. Communication is key. But before we dive into the conversation on all things identity, innovation, and leadership, I want to make sure that I plug the Global Connection Collection. It is a curated space for you to access exclusive tech, travel, culture, brands, all the things that you want. Again, very exclusive. So make sure you explore the full collection at kmob1003.com. All right. So, I like to be transparent, and I want y'all to know that, I genuinely struggled with deciding which topic I wanted to discuss after coming off this break. There were so many things just bubbling around in my mind. There was many things just on my heart. I was catching up with loved ones over the holiday. I'm going to admit that I was doing some doom scrolling in between my episodes of the Twilight Zone during the New Year's Eve marathon. But there were just so many things, and what I kept coming back to was this feeling of heaviness. And I know I'm not the only person that feels it. When I talk to other people, they also feel it, right? This collective heaviness that many folks are feeling. It has nothing to do with overeating, right? Though we may have done that, that's not what I'm talking about. There's so many things happening all the damn time. And y'all know that I don't really do politics on here. I discourage my guests from doing politics on here, but this isn't really about your political affiliation, whether you lean right, left, center. We're not talking about that. So if you are a member of this collective society, the actions of the administration are going to impact you in some way, shape, or form. It may not feel directly, it may feel indirect, but it's going to impact you. This is not about whether you agree, disagree with any of the decisions that are being made. It is the fact that the political climate, right? It quite literally determines whether or not you have a job. It determines the type of work you do, what you'll be paid, where you're going to work, everything else, right? Where can you live in order to do that work? What are the areas where you can do a certain type of job, no matter what your job is. And that's not a new concept. That's reality. And changes like the ones that we've been experiencing, particularly over the last year, change the dynamics of our workplace culture. So there may be events that galvanize you and bring you closer to your teams. There may be polarizing decisions that are made that make you feel actually more disconnected from your teams. Even if you work for yourself as a freelancer or you're a service provider, there are going to be events around you that may change the way you interact with your clients or your customers, for better or for worse, right? For good or bad. And today, I just really wanted to think about, how do you continue to show up when there's so much happening all the time, all around you? Because if and how you show up matters, right? It matters to your people, whether that's your teammates, whether that's your family. It matters because you want to have a job and your livelihood depends on it. So I really want to talk about, some of those ways that we can be mindful and continue to show up, especially in the spaces that we are needed the most and what we need the most. So I just want to note that I do not like all the trendy buzzwords that are floating around referring to existing phenomena like disengaged workers or organizations creating hostile work environments that, force employees out. Y'all can miss me with that quiet quitting, calibrated, contributing, quiet firing mess. Cut it. These things happened well before somebody started writing about it in Forbes or whatever, right? These were actual workplace terms to talk about job satisfaction, to talk about that disengagement. And so I like to think about it in those terms, not all the things that you may be hearing about, though those phenomena they may resonate with you, right? And that's what we're talking about today. But I'm not going to do all this is quiet quitting now, because I don't do that. I don't believe in that. I just don't. So, if we think about showing up and what that means, right, it requires that you first and foremost just acknowledge what is happening. That's what I need you to do first. Acknowledge that something is happening. So for many of us, it is a collective grief that we're feeling. That is the actual terminology for it. So, war, genocide, escalating acts of state-sanctioned violence, economic instability, all of this on top of what you may be experiencing personally within your own home, right? That when your world is feeling volatile, don't pretend that it's not happening. Name it, acknowledge it, right? Because that's extremely important that you do that. Burying your head in the sand and trying to pretend that it's not going to happen, or that's not happening around you, doesn't help you, and it doesn't help anyone else, right? And then now you're carrying around this heaviness that you haven't named, and that you're trying to pretend that there's not this monkey on your back when it is riding with you everywhere you go. So please, first and foremost, if you want to show up, make sure that you acknowledge what is actually happening around you. Next, I want you to focus on what is in your control. If you can't change the outcome of, promotions or layoffs or customers not having discretionary income to spend with you and in your business, you can't control that. Why are you staying up all night worrying about it? Like, for real. Like, I know that's easier said than done, especially with someone like me who does have anxiety. And I do sit up sometimes worrying about the fate of the world, but I need to worry about what's in my control. I can't change those things. There may be steps that I could take to help change those things, but I'm not going to change those things overnight. If I am, employed by an organization that's laying off people, I'm not the CEO. I don't control the layoffs. I'm not a shareholder. I don't have input in that way. So I really need to focus on what is in my locus of control, right? Focusing on what changes I can make at my level. Maybe that means for you finding new ways to engage or re-engage with your work. If there's a special project you've been wanting to work on, but you keep putting it off, right? Now is the time. Now is the time. There's all this stuff going around. You want to kind of recalibrate, find some different things to work on at work. If you are like, you know what, I've really been thinking about, how do I get this promotion? I'm lucky. I'm blessed to be here. I'm gainfully employed. It may not be exactly what I want to do, but I'm trying to get promoted anyway, right? I want to make sure that they recognize my skill set. Maybe I need to talk to someone about a stretch assignment. Maybe I need to talk to someone about attending a conference. Maybe there's money in the budget that'll get me some extra training, and I won't know until I ask, right? But sitting around, again, thinking about things that aren't in your control, not helpful. Thinking about how can you re-engage or engage further in the things that bring you joy, or at the very least, the things that you have to focus on around you. Even if they're not super energizing, maybe trying to find something that is energizing, right? And I know that feels like, duh, Dr. Carr, like, yes, of course I want to find things that are interesting, but I'm stocking shelves and it's not that interesting to me, right? I completely recognize that in that case, it may be time for you to move on from your current role. And what the things that are in your control is, what kind of job searches are you going to do? What kind of, again, it could be assignments within your organization. It could be new things that you want to try outside of your organization. It could be a career shift, right? So now's the time to really just dedicate that brain power to that. There's so much, I don't think people realize how energizing it really can be to just think about your future and what you desire for yourself, and then start making a plan for that. Whether you could be doing a vision board, you could be doing all sorts. There's all sorts of tricks and cool things that they got out there on TikTok and stuff like that to help you start thinking about your future. But that's another way for you to re-engage in not only the work that you're doing, but the work that you want to do. And that helps you, stay grounded and continue to show up, even though there's full on shenanigans happening every morning when you wake up. I'm so tired of living in unprecedented times, but that's the world that we're in right now. And so it's up to me to control what I can control. Okay. So, I said it before, and I'm going to say it again. You need to stay connected to your community. You need to stay connected to your community. This is not the time to be a lone wolf, which is actually a misnomer because wolves are actually very social creatures. And the guy that wrote all the book about alphas and wolves and stuff like that actually walks back everything he was saying, just for your knowledge. So, stay connected with your community. Stop trying to be a lone wolf, right? Stay with your pack. And if you don't have a pack, start being intentional in finding or creating your own pack, right? I'm just full on into that wolf analogy, but it's not the time to be by yourself, right? It really isn't. In fact, EY, it used to be called Ernst & Young. So they actually did a survey where they looked at over 5,000 employees across different organizations and industries worldwide, not even just, we're not talking about, one area, we're talking about across this big, beautiful blue planet of ours. And the findings revealed that headwinds, including economic volatility and societal tensions, have created this paradox in which we're increasingly connected. This world is increasingly connected, but employees actually feel more disconnected. So they found that, work is actually the place that people feel a strong sense of belonging. This is actually only second to home, and that number has actually increased 6% just from 2 years ago. So again, we are talking about individualist societies, collective societies. We're talking about the East and West, even though I don't like to use that terminology. But again, everyone across the world, they're looking at all of these employees in these different areas, and they're all saying the same kind of things, that yes, I have the ability to get on, a Teams or a Zoom or a Google Meet or whatever, but I still feel really disconnected. Why? Right? Like, why are people feeling so disconnected? This loneliness is actually impacting how they're showing up and how they're connecting to everyone else. So if nothing else I said resonated, let's always go back to the research. The research is saying that people are feeling disconnected, they're feeling lonely, and this is the time to start re-engaging, right? You need to be intentional about finding your people. The disconnection, the loneliness is literally bad for your health. Is bad for your health. Social isolation and loneliness were associated with a 29% increased risk of heart disease and a 32% risk of stroke. Okay. So now is the time to stay connected to your community, right? This is a separate episode because it's a completely different conversation, but I'm going to note it here that social media is not an actual connection. Okay. It may feel like it. Social media is a vehicle, right? It's a conduit to find and facilitate connections, but you need to get out and touch grass. You do. There's no other way to say that. You need to get out and touch grass. You need to actually go and talk to people. I mean it. Your life is going to depend on it. Also, plug that generative AI is not social connection either. Again, completely separate episode, but if you are relying on chat to be your bestie, it can never be your bestie in real life. It's not real. It's generative, right? It is not sentient. Sentient is not the same as having a voice and being able to articulate things. So again, you need to get out and touch grass. And I'm not saying that you can't use these things to again find people, find your tribe, find your pack, to stay up to date with them ever so often, right? Like in the meantime, between time where y'all aren't chatting on the phone or meeting up in person, right? You can use these tools. In fact, an example, right? Um, if you like using chat, y'all know how I feel about chat. Y'all know how I feel about all of the Gen AIs, but if you are insistent on using chat, right, use chat to help you think through what are some good things that would be hobbies, right? Good for you, specifically for you. What are some good ways to meet people in your city, in your area? Maybe you live in a small, like a pretty small place that's kind of isolated, only has like 500 people or something like that in your town, right? Using chat to help you think through like what would make the most sense for me, Dr. Carter, to should I join a book club? Should I, go to different wine tastings, whatever. It can help you find all of these different activities that may be located in your area or groups that you can join. You can use social media, right, to like join a community on Reddit or Discord or even Facebook, whatever, right? You can use those tools, find those people in in that space, but then now you need to make that effort to develop those relationships offline, meet in person and do the hobby together instead of just always talking about the books kind of virtually. At least maybe finding one time a year or twice a year where the book club gets together, right? Y'all save up y'all money and y'all meet every March to actually meet in person, coming from all areas of the country, of the globe, right? But that is a way for you to use those technologies, those vehicles, those conduits to find the connection. But it's up to you to then go out and make sure that connection is real. Reach out and touch someone, hug somebody, right? Hold hands, embrace, right? Go, truly, please go out and touch grass. Y'all see my face. I'm being so serious. Um, because you need to make this effort. The community and that connection is what is going to energize you. It's what's going to allow you to show up at work, for your friends, for your family, and everywhere else. Okay. So I know, again, that feels kind of like, why would Dr. Carr want to start our year off like that? Because it's been on my heart. And I want to make sure that I recognize, I want to name, I want to acknowledge the heaviness that I've been feeling, that others in my sphere have been feeling, that people have mentioned that they've been feeling. I want to make sure that that's acknowledged. And I want you to know that you don't just have to sit with it, that there are things that you can do to make sure that you can continue to get up every day and show up in the ways that matter the most, again, for you, for the people that count on you, and for the folks that you count on. Okay. So we've reached carte blanche, and it is actually going to be a short one today. So I am leaving you with one reflective question and a quote. So we're going to start with our question. And it's kind of a two-parter because y'all know I can't help myself. Okay, so question. Who in my life keeps me grounded when the world feels like it's falling apart? And how can I expand that list by at least one person? Okay, I want y'all to think about that. I want y'all to reflect on that, because we are trying to stay in community, right? We are trying to make those connections. This is very important. So be thinking about, again, who in my life keeps me grounded when the world feels like it's just falling apart all around me? And how can I expand this list by at least one person? And then this quote. I used to actually laugh at people that, they will always have this quote in their email and their signature block. I actually used to work with someone who would quote himself in his signature block. That always tickled me. It always tickled me. And he didn't actually use his name. He would put his initials. And so you had to figure out who are the initials. You're like, who's this famous person that he's quoting? It was him. It was him. But quotes, I've learned to actually love them and embrace them. I have books of quotes. I use quotes in my dissertation as like chapter headings. Like they just using other people's words. I love words. So using other people's words to really ground me and energize me, right, and galvanize me. Those things I like. And so I found a quote that I felt was appropriate for our conversation today. So it is from Maya Angelou. If you don't like something, change it. If you can't change it, change your attitude. Okay? All right, y'all. So this is your reminder that thanks to Podbean, you can find the Culture Docent everywhere you listen to podcasts, everywhere, y'all. So make sure, again, if you are like, hey, I can't catch you on the KMOB 1003 website. I can't catch you on YouTube. You can catch me somewhere because we are everywhere. So make sure that you check us out where you are listening to your podcast. Share it with your friends who are like, yeah, I got Spotify, so I want to listen to our Spotify. We're there. So send that, right? Also, check back in with KMOB 1003 and me. You can find me actually on socials, on IG, particularly at Carbonated Sunshine. And so, carbonated is CARRBONATED, Sunshine. And you can find me again on IG under that handle. And I am always sharing some of those Culture Docent updates so you can know what's happening with us in the meantime, in between time. And as I mentioned to start off this episode, I'm gonna close it kind of the same way. I really want y'all to dig in. It's a new year. I know y'all need some new fits. I know y'all want to travel and all that good stuff. So for direct access to the partners and tools featured in the global collection, we're talking about from Southwest to Hilton to all our specialized wellness archives, visit the network at KMOB1003.com. So I will see y'all on Tuesday for more empowering conversations that lead to empowered experiences. Bye, y'all.